Opinion. After my grandmother's ordeal, I have to speak out against the sexual violence by Hamas on October 7th. CNN. Clara Harras was 17 years old, living in Nazi-occupied Poland, when a German officer told her she'd save her family under the condition that she had sex with him. He processed to rape her. The Nazis then brutally excused her grandparent, mother, father, two little sisters, and a brother. Somehow she summoned the will to survive the next 4 years of terror. But for the next 60 years, she lived with the nightmare of unspeakable trauma. Yet she never abandoned her Jewish identity. Clara is my grandfather. My grandfather also survived the Holocaust, having spent 4 years in concentration camp. Because of his profession as the dentist, he was ordered to comb through the corpse to extract any gold teeth. Aspects of both my grandparents' stories were shared open throughout my childhood in an effort to make certain that we would never forget. My grandparents recounted their stories at the dinner table, in my history class, and at my Hebrew school. But it was also only when my grandmother was on her deathbed that she shared that last vestige of her history, her rape by a Nazi, and although I live with the painful truth of her rape, I was motivated by the collective voices that said never again. And then on October 7th, never again happened. When Hamas attacked Israel, they used the tactics that have been used to subjugate Jewish women and women worldwide for centuries, as they systematically carried out rape and sexual violence on Israeli women and girls. From the early 20th century pogroms to the Holocaust, rape was routinely used as the weapon of war against the Jewish people to torture, terrorize, and suppress us. For more than 2 decades, I have fought to embolden victims of rape and empower those who have been sold into the commercial sex trade, sometimes by their own family members. I'm often asked why I work to combat gender violence. My response is always the same. My grandparents are Holocaust survivors, and their experiences had a deep impact on my life and left me with the responsibility to stand up against hate. I was raised with a deep understanding that injustice happens in the vacuum of silence. If people don't speak up, evil operates with impunity. In the wake of October 7th, I have chosen to speak up, but not everyone has. If people don't speak up, evil operates with impunity. There is overwhelming evidence that the October 7th attacks included horrific and widespread gender-based violence, including rape and sexual mutilation. It includes forensic examinations of numerous Israeli victims' bodies mangled by acts of rape and sexual torture. It includes testimony by survivors of the attacks who witnessed the Hamas terrorists raping and mutil- mutilating women. It includes the testimony of first responders who found Israeli women and girls murdered in conditions that made it clear they had been raped. A witness who gave video testimony spoke about seeing a woman being gang raped. It includes the video of the young Israeli woman, her pants blood soaked, being dragged by her hair by Hamas abductors, and the footage of their other women stripped of their clothing. It includes testimony gathered by a civil commission headed by the international law expert documenting atrocities against women and children by Hamas on October 7th. The mountain of evidence reveals the unimaginable viciousness of the Hamas terrorist attacks. Last week marked 2 months since the attacks, and still, many feminist organizations whose core mission is to fight for the right of every woman and girl, of every nationality, religion, and community to live free from all forms of violence, including rape, remains astoundingly silent. November 25, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women came and went, and many remained silent. As I've continued to advocate for some of New York's most vulnerable women and girls these past 2 months, and as I simultaneously speak out for the women and girls in Israel whose voices were taken from them on October 7th. My grandfather's open uttered phrase echoes in my ears. There's no question the Nazis were evil monsters, but I blame the bystanders. My grandfather felt profoundly betrayed by the people who had a voice and did not use it. He understood the existential evil of the Nazis, but felt most betrayed by the neighbors, the shopkeepers, and the friends who stood silent. He never accepted that humanity was unwilling to help. Now Israeli families want to know if humanity will help them. Devastated by the horrors of October 7th and tormented by fears for the hostages, they need to hear our voices to know where we stand. So I will say it loud and clear. Good people can disagree on the pathway to peace. Good people can disagree on many aspects of the conflict. But good people must use their voices to denounce a certain unacceptable act, and one of them is the use of mass rape as the weapon of war. There are innocent people still held captive by Hamas, and they include women and girls who live all likelihood have been subjected and very likely are still being subjected to sexual assault by Hamas. They also include men and boys who may have suffered the same horror. People of good conscience must demand to bring them home. There is no question that what happened on October 7th evoked the Holocaust in its barbarity. It has also evoked the Holocaust denier as people demand the proof and evidence of the terror and sexual violence. Organizations whose mission is to combat gender-based violence should be among the loudest voices. We always stand with survivors, even in the most controversial cases where there is little proof other than a survivor's word. Stand up for the victims and survivors of October 7th. Stand up for those still in captivity. If you do not, your silence confounds the pain of the survivors, the erasure of the murdered, the anguish of their families. Your silence empowers the perpetrators. Each of us has a voice, however small. Call the White House or your senator or your representative in Congress. Tell them the return of the hostages is a priority for you and a priority for humanity. Demand a full investigation into the sexual violence committed by Hamas terrorists. Never again should the world enable atrocities with silence. It's time to use your voice.